All right, so we're here today to interview Eric Payton, the CEO of the Vivo project, with 13 years in the mental health and addiction fields, a background as a Marine, 30 years in the wellness industry, and a bachelor in psychology. And we're here to launch the first episode of the Vivo project podcast. So tell us about the vision and mission of the Vivo project podcast.
Yeah, the Vivo project podcast mission has really always been the same thing as the Vivo project, which I started 8 years ago. And really the vision and the mission is about empowering guys to be vulnerable with their mental health issues and allowing through that vulnerability to heal and empower them in their lives so they can move forward and live their lives to the fullest.
That's amazing. And I know you've seen miracles and so much healing and movement already in what you've done over the last 8 years. So you've been working offline and a lot of one-on-one with men over the last 8 years. So what has you bringing this online and launching the podcast now?
Yeah, really two reasons. One, obviously, is to reach more people. The video stuff and the online stuff has been something that has been on my mind, but it's just really been making that switch. And then the second, and probably most profound thing, is the loss of my brother.
Tell us about what happened with your brother.
Yeah, so my brother, I lost my brother in 2021. He committed suicide. And, for me being in this space for 8 years and actually 13 years altogether, it was a really big deal for me. That's why I said, being able to empower guys to be vulnerable with what's going on inside their heads with their mental health has been such a big thing for me because, my brother was a West Point graduate. He was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. He played rugby for West Point. He had a beautiful wife, 2 kids, and he just basically threw all that away through the act of committing suicide. And it really, for me, has been something that's been impactful because I know that there probably could have been a lot of healing if he was able to feel vulnerable with some of the things that he was dealing with and struggling with.
So he really kept it all inside.
Yeah, definitely. The thing about my brother is that, again, he was an all-American type of guy that, from the outside looking in, a lot of people would think that he had life figured out and the perfect life and, financial stuff and career-wise. And like he was involved with the military, with helping other people heal. But, what we know now is that there was a part that he was keeping hidden inside. And I think that was the very part that actually took him out, which is, again, the reason why I really want to start this podcast, to really let guys know, particularly that, if you do have something that you're struggling with, the biggest thing you can do is talk about it and not keep it bottled up inside.
Absolutely. So what we see going on in the world right now and just the challenges with mental health, and then on top of that, your personal experience with your brother taking his own life is really what has you on this mission to reach more men right now.
Yeah.
This podcast.
Yeah, 100%. I think, even for me personally with the pandemic, I think we're just now still seeing the first signs of all the things that have happened to people from being in isolation, from, the struggles from that being in isolation, and just the things that we're seeing in the world. I think it's only going to get worse. And I really, like, the other part of this mission is really not only empowering guys to get healthy for themselves, but for getting healthy so they can help other guys, because I really see that as a big deal even for myself, it's like, hey, from going through this process, it's really made me look inward and say, hey, what have I been holding back that maybe if I shared could help somebody else? And then from there, it's kind of a domino effect.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, because when it comes to mental health and addiction, I think some people have a picture of who might struggle with that. But it's interesting because everything you listed about your brother, everything you have listed about yourself, do you find that there are men who have it all together and just really have achieved so much and they're upholding that image, but oftentimes are they the ones that struggle the most to actually get help and talk about what's going on?
Yeah, I think there's a certain element of that, especially with social media. And, the space that I'm in is self-development, right? So everybody wants to look like they've got it all together.
Yep.
And I'm definitely not saying that, hey, run around and tell people all your problems, but I think there's a place and a platform. And I want to be able to provide a platform to where people can say, hey, like, I'm struggling. Like, I need to have a community of guys that I can open up with, not so you can feel sorry for me and we can sit around and have a big old pity party, but that I can actually say those things out loud. And again, not only is it going to help you, but it may help somebody else and community to be able to share those things. Because I really do think most times we build things up in our head like this is horrible. If anybody knew about this, there's no, how could they love me? How would they accept me? And in reality, I really think it's the opposite. I think people want to hear that internal struggle that, hey, I don't have it all figured out. Yeah, I've got this program. Yes, these are the things that I do to be successful, whatever that may be. But I don't think there's enough guys out there that are saying, hey, I still have struggles. And that's the thing about mental health. Mental health is no different than, physical health or spiritual health. It's a daily practice. And it's not like a one-time, I do X, Y, or Z, and then I'm better for the rest of my life. It's the same, like I said, with, physical health. I mean, if you want to be physically healthy, there are things that you do on a regular basis, right, and you're going to fall off sometimes, and that's part of the journey. This is not a linear process. It's a process with highs and lows, and, I think there's seasons to everything. It's not always going to be summer. If it was summer all the time, I mean, it's hot outside. I mean, if it was summer all the time, it'd turn into a complete desert. So we need different seasons. And I think being able to normalize that, specifically with guys, is empowering for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the seasons give contrast, so it makes each season even more.
Yeah, and learning how to deal with those certain seasons, right? You're going to have winters. You're going to have different seasons, and I think as you go, you're able to kind of navigate those waters and say, hey, wait, I've been here before, and the point is to never have problems again. We're always going to have problems. I think the bigger thing is, how do I get better at dealing with the problems when they come up, and how do I make those times shorter?
Yeah. I think it's interesting too with people that have had extraordinary success to get vulnerable and open up about some of the areas they struggle with, because it helps everyone see that you can still have success and still have a great life, even when you struggle with some of the same things that other people are. So it really brings light to that. I love that you're doing that. So I know with the podcast, you're going to be doing some teachings directly from all of your experience and knowledge. Are you also going to be doing interviews with other people?
Yeah, it's interesting because, this process of losing my brother has really given me some time to really reflect on what I want to do. So one of the big things that I'm doing is there's a group of guys that I've kind of connected with that are in various fields, and they're not quote unquote experts, but they have walked it out. Mm-hmm. Some of them are actually clients of mine that they're sober, they're doing well. But there's still certain areas in their life where they're struggling. So I think, part of what I want to do is bring on some of those guys and let them talk about walking through the process and let them open up about, the things that they're still struggling with and currently working through. And then also have some other experts to come in and talk about different topics in the field of mental health.
Awesome. So I know that you've been running the In Vivo project the last 8 years, and you've seen a lot of breakthrough with men. So tell me, what is different about your approach? What's different about your programs, your approach, and how you kind of tackle mental health and addiction?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me is, being able to work with people one-on-one is what I've been able to do previously. And it's always the way the In Vivo project came about is that I worked at a treatment center. I got to see people working with counselors. And so what we do is we partner not only with the client, but we also partner with the counselor that they're working with. And the difference is that, when you sit in counseling, you talk about all the things that you want to do and the things that are keeping you stuck. Whereas with the coaching aspect, we can actually come alongside the client and work those things out real-time, real-world experiences to help them get over whatever hurdles they may be facing outside the four walls of a counseling program.
Awesome. So do you see people get results faster this way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, part of the magic is it does really speed up time, because if we're able to really identify and that person that we're working with is able to get vulnerable and say, hey, these are specifically the times and the days and the things that are tripping me up, then we're able to actually come alongside, like, knock on the door, ring the doorbell, and say, hey, we're here to help you walk through these things that are keeping you stuck. And a lot of times, again, that's what people need. And a lot of it's just holding space for somebody. It's like, it's not like I've got some magic formula out here. I think that's a setup too, is thinking that there's some one way that you can do something. Really, it's like, hey, whoever we're working with, what do you think is the best next thing that we need to do? And then we hold space for that person to walk through it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the great thing is that we say, okay, this didn't work. These are the things that were positive. Here's some things that maybe will change up. And then we keep repeating that process until we get the result that we're looking for.
So I'm curious if you're open to sharing this. Can you give us an example of like a before and after of someone you've worked with that maybe your listeners would relate to?
Yeah, like a before and after.
Before and after of really going through this process.
Yeah. I think probably the biggest thing is, I've been able to work with people that maybe have been through like the process of trying to get better, and whether that's going away to like inpatient treatment over and over, because like the average person goes to treatment like between 6 to 12 times before they actually get the results that they're looking for. So a lot of times, again, what we'll do is come alongside somebody and say, hey, listen, you probably don't need to go back to treatment, because you could write the treatment. You could get up and teach the classes. But what you're missing is taking the knowledge that you have in your head and bringing it down here to your heart and actually doing the things that you need to be doing. And again, it's not rocket science. I tell people all the time, I wish I was sitting here and could tell you that, I've got this fancy formula and this is exactly what you need to do, but it's just not that way. And it's usually simplistic things. And I tell people, whatever it is it losing weight? Is it, trying to get in shape, working out? Is it career wise? Is it financial? It's usually very simple principles that, if applied consistently over time, will give you the results that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's just really having that person alongside of you who cares enough to ask the right questions.
Yep.
And then they have the answers within them. It sounds like you draw that out and you help them be the hero of their own story.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, the biggest part of what I love about my job is we are storytellers. We are taking a person's story that may be in complete chaos or have ended in tragedy with their circumstances and say, hey, let's take a fresh piece of paper here and a pen, and let's write this out and get a vision that we can run with. And let me partner with you. I'm your biggest fan. I'm your coach. And I think, that's where the magic happens, and really empowering that person that, hey, like, I know if you don't believe in yourself, that's okay right now, because I believe in you.
I love that. So tell us, how did you even get into the mental health and addiction space?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I'll make it a shorter story. I went back to school a little bit later in my life and got a bachelor in psychology. And I originally thought that I wanted to maybe be a therapist, but I also have a background in the wellness space. I've been doing the wellness stuff for about 30 years now. And originally I wanted to work at like a resort to do wellness stuff. And I was applying for jobs at the time after I had graduated, and there were no jobs coming. And I literally, I was at the point of I'm giving up. I'm just never going to be able to find anything. And I was actually about to go drive a dump truck for a friend of mine. And I got a phone call from a treatment center in Dallas. And they said, hey, we're looking for a wellness director. And I tell people I really stumbled into that because I had no idea about addiction. I had lost some friends to addiction over the years, but I didn't understand the process. And the treatment center I was working for is really they're one of the top treatment centers in the country. And they really just kind of took a flyer on me and said, hey, let's see what this guy can do. And so that's really how I got my foot in the door to do what I'm doing now.
So you loved that field, I'm assuming, because you moved forward with it. What was your experience with addiction or mental health prior to that position?
Yeah, so again, I had never really worked around addiction. Yeah. I had, done some personal training, and I had some clients that struggled with addiction. I had some friends that struggled with addiction. And so the biggest thing was I was able to draw on that experience of those and kind of use that as a guide. And what I really figured out real quick that, yeah, addiction is a specialized field, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with a human being that wants to be treated like a human, not somebody with a label, because I tell people whether it's addiction or mental health, that's not who you are at the core. You are a human being, and that's the end of the story. So, for me, it was really, it was a learning curve for sure, but it's something that I absolutely did enjoy and still do enjoy doing to this day.
Yeah, it's amazing. You started with that position, and now you've gone on to start the Vivo project and help so many more people with addiction, mental health. So I'm really curious. Tell us a little bit more about your brother's passing, how that has impacted you personally, but also how that's now driving the vision of the Vivo project.
Yeah, so I would say, again, the passing of my brother was devastating. And if I'm being real honest, there was a period of time where I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore, because it was really, traumatic. And being in the field and dealing with people on a day-to-day basis was almost triggering in a sense. But after I really sat back and thought about it, it was like, hey, this is a tragedy, but it really, at the end of the day, for me, turned that pain of the tragedy into more of a purpose to help more people and get the word out, and I know my brother, besides being my brother, he was my best friend, and I know that he would want me to keep going and help more people.
That's so powerful. to take a tragedy and something that could take you out from your position, take you out from helping people, and to actually have it being used for a purpose and to help even more people. Because here you are taking it to the next level. You're doing this. You're the one that's committed to the podcast, bringing this online. You're doing what you've been doing for 8 years offline, and you're bringing it to a much bigger audience now. And it sounds like so much of that is propelling you. What is propelling you is what happened with your brother, Chad.
Yeah, 100%. I would say,
and he'd be so proud of you.
Yeah, I know he would. And it's, he's, whether he knows it or not, he's kicked me into the deep end of the pool. It's always been my heart to help more people. And, it's been a passion for me. I think even as a young kid, I've always had a heart to help people. So in a sense, I feel like this is just my God-given talent that I'm using, and that it's what I'm supposed to be doing. So is it scary starting something new after being in, a different space for the past 13 years? Absolutely. But I think that's part of the process is, if you're not doing something that kind of scares you or maybe really scares you, you might want to rethink it possibly, and push yourself a little bit further.
Absolutely. Because you're already so good at what you currently do. The last 8 years, you have a process, you have a approach, that this works. But now when you're taking it online, you're taking it to a bigger audience and you're taking it virtual, there are a lot of new things to walk through with that. So.
Yeah, 100%.
And anyone listening to this podcast is a part of that journey, and they're going to be on the journey with you.
Yep.
As you walk this out.
Yeah, 100%. I'm, it's an honor to serve, and, and again, I think if I can help one person, that's enough to help another person. And again, I feel like it's a domino effect of being able to just help more people.
Absolutely. And I'm sure anyone listening right now is already thinking about someone that they have in mind that they love, that they're going to tell about the podcast. I really believe men need to know about this. Yep. Even the men who you think have it all together and they're at the top of the achievement track, right? A lot of times, those are the men that aren't talking about what they're struggling with. So I hope for the listeners, they're already thinking of someone they can share this with. I hope that they're going to continue tuning in to every single episode as you walk this journey out. And as we close out, would you share with the audience what is something that you would suggest for anyone listening right now who's struggling with mental health and addiction?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say to anybody listening right now that's struggling is you're not broken. Whatever that thing is that's going on with you, that's not who you are at your core. That is something that's happened to you, and that you should be able to separate from your true self. I think the second thing I would say is trust the process. Don't be too attached to a specific outcome happening a certain way, because again, I don't think from doing this for 13 years, it really never happens the way exactly you think it's going to be happen. And that there's not a quick fix. This is a journey, and really I would tell anybody, hey, if listening to this podcast is something that you can connect with first, then it's an honor. And I think being able to find a good community of guys that you can connect with is huge, to come up with the ability to be vulnerable with what's going on with you. And I think the last thing is that for anybody listening to this, if you're struggling and you're thinking, well, I'm really not doing that bad, I'm just going to keep this one pushed down, I just want to encourage you that one thing that you're keeping secret is probably the one thing that's keeping you from having your biggest breakthrough with healing and living your life to the fullest.
So good. So I hope everyone here subscribes, continues to follow you. I know I'll be tuning in. I'll be telling every guy that I know about your podcast. And I'm personally very inspired by what you're doing as someone whose father took his own life as well. I truly believe if he had had resources like this and someone that was putting a podcast out like this, putting information out like this, maybe it could have helped him. You never know what people are struggling with. So I'm very inspired by what you're doing. Just thank you so much for stepping out and pushing through the hurt and the pain of losing your brother and pushing to the other side of that to go make a difference with it.
Yeah,
I have no doubt you will reach so many people.
All right. Thanks so much.